What's going on, friends? This is Neil Adler with another episode of Syracuse Central on the Fan Arch Network. Happy Tuesday. Hope everyone had a good Monday. This is Syracuse Central. We talk about Syracuse basketball, football, and recruiting in both sports. Please drop me comments, as always, about what you like and you don't like, and hit that subscribe button if you feel so inclined. The transfer portal runs through this Friday, the 16th. So we're going to talk some Syracuse football transfer stuff today. And it's important to note that guys have to be, well, we're talking about football, so guys, but just obviously other sports, there'd be women involved. But in football, gentlemen, they have to be in the portal by the 16th, but they don't have to commit to their new team. Although they can't mess around a whole lot. Like, for instance, with Syracuse, their spring semester started on yesterday, on Monday the 12th. And I feel like I've read that the last day to like register for classes or something is like the 20th. So they have a little bit extra time. But, a lot of schools are starting their spring semesters. They started yesterday or starting this week. And I know teams that are in the college football playoff title game, by the way, go Canes. Miami playing Indiana on the 19th. They have some more time, and I get their athletes and all that, but time is certainly of the essence, and we'll see a lot of movement quickly here. But wanted to just talk a little bit about the quarterback situation as it pertains to Syracuse in the transfer portal, because I've mentioned here on Syracuse Central, and you've probably heard it elsewhere, or maybe even read about it where I run inside the Loud House, but Fran Brown has said that his plan has been for the 2026 quarterback room to be Steve Angeli, the redshirt junior, who unfortunately was injured in September, but assumably will be fully healthy and will be the starter again, along with two transfers, one of which Syracuse has already gotten. Hopefully they didn't get a second one by the time it's aired, because then this is a little stale. But that's the way it goes with transfer portal stuff. And then Zaid Lott, who is an three-star incoming freshman from Charlotte. Now, I believe Rich Bellin, the freshman, is still on the roster. I haven't seen anything about him transferring. But Ricky Collins transferred to Kennesaw State. Wishing him the best. Luke Carney transferred to Houston. And then Jakari Williams is in the portal, redshirt freshman. So Syracuse over the weekend got a commitment from Amari Odom, who had visited, and I had reported about on Inside the Loud House. He is a transfer quarterback from Kennesaw State, and he committed to Syracuse on Saturday. And 24/7 Sports, CBS Sports reported this first, but I did confirm it with a source of mine independently. And I think he could be a really nice backup quarterback. He's 6'4", 205. He is a redshirt sophomore. I believe he'll have 2 years of eligibility left. He was good this past year. Kennesaw State won the Conference USA title. They were 10-4 overall. He threw for 65%, completed 65% of his passes. Let me make sure I get this right. Just under 2,600 yards, 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 347 yards on the ground, 7 more scores there. He's a top 35-ish quarterback in the portal. I mean, he's not, gangbusters, lights out, so to speak, but he's a backup. But, he's going to be, I think, a serviceable backup. So, in terms of Syracuse and the portal, other guys that they had recruited, and I believe all of them had visited, whether it was something I reported or other people reported. Marcus Stokes, the West Florida redshirt sophomore, he committed to Memphis. Furman sophomore, Trey Hayden, he pledged to Mexico State. And then I had also reported about Mercer's Braden Atkinson, who was a freshman All-American at the FCS level. He did visit last week, but he committed to, let me get my notes here, Oregon State. I talked to a source of mine, and obviously I'm not going to say who that is, but when I talk about sources, these are people that have direct knowledge of these things. I'm not just blowing smoke here. Anyway, when I talked to this source after Odom committed, I asked this source, is there a specific quarterback transfer quarterback that Syracuse is looking at to be, another commit as maybe the number 3 person, with Lott coming in 4th as a true freshman. And this source said, they're looking at some others, but they weren't focused on one in particular. Now, one to keep in mind is Taron Dickens, who did recently visit Syracuse, and he's a redshirt sophomore at Western Carolina. And if memory serves correct, I wrote about him on Inside the Loud House, like when he first entered the portal, because he went to Miami Northwestern Senior High School, and that's where Calvin Russell and Tadarius Hughes and Darius Johnson and others have gone. So there's a pipeline between Syracuse and Miami Northwestern. So we'll see. We'll see. I don't 100% know if Dickens is a take. I don't know what his interest level in Syracuse is. You know, he had a great year, and does he want to come in and I guess he would compete for the number 2 spot, but he could very well be the number 3 spot, or is he more interested in going to another Power Four and being the true backup, or going to another mid major and being the guy? You know, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it all. And interestingly enough, Ricky Collins transferred to Kennesaw State. It's just so. So people were like, "Oh, it was a swap between Collins and Odom." I don't know about all that, but look, I know Ricky struggled, but I'm wishing him well. I'm wishing him well. Absolutely wishing him well. All right, so just I'm not gonna like cover every single transfer they've gotten. I can maybe do a recap after kind of it's all said and done. But I like to focus, and certainly if you've read my stuff on Inside the Loud House or Syracuse.com or Mike McAllister or a million other places, really good outlets. You've seen about certain guys committing, and so, but I do want to focus on some position groups that I think are important. And one is at it's the defensive line, but really the more like the defensive end edge rushers. I just and again, I don't really need to throw salt in the wound about how bad Syracuse was this past year, and it certainly Angeli going down was a big part of it, but the team stunk at a lot of different things, and it's over and done with. And there's a lot of new staff too, and it's a new slate, clean slate. But yeah, on the edge, I think that Syracuse was not very good. Getting pressure on the quarterback, containing the edge for from the rushing perspective. And you can also talk about the tackles in the interior as well. But from an edge perspective, and they have a new edges coach, so they picked up a couple of good ones, I think, in recent days. And the more recent one was on Monday. This was first reported by 24/7 Sports, CBS Sports. I again confirmed it with a source of mine, and I don't want to in any way I'm not trying to intimate that when these other national media outlets report something and then I say, oh, source. I'm just being careful. But 24/7 Sports and CBS Sports, totally legit, way more plugged in than me. Anyway, so on Monday, Syracuse got a commitment from UNLV transfer edge rusher Tunmise Adeli, and I'm sorry if I butchered your name, Tunmise. He's 6'4", 275. He's a redshirt senior, but I believe he was injured, got a medical hardship waiver, or is play one year. He's got 1 year expected left. Otherwise, Syracuse won't have taken him. But he was an honorable mention All Mountain West Conference performer this past season. He had 20 solo tackles, 49 total tackles, 7.5 tackles for a loss, 6 sacks, 6 quarterback hurries, and 3 pass breakups. That's pretty good. Now, I know people make a lot of this, especially in the transport. I mean, it is his 5th school. He was at Texas A&M, Michigan State, Texas State, UNLV, and now Syracuse. Okay, fine, whatever. I don't care. If he's good, that it's great. I love how I wrote about on Inside the Loud House, and then obviously a lot of other media outlets covered it, and a lot of the headline, oh, he's 5th school in 5 years. Who cares? Whatever. If he's good, that's all I care about. So, and then, but they got if we're talking about edge rushers over the weekend, again, this was first reported, I believe, Brent Axe at Syracuse.com / the Post-Standard had this one. Keyshawn Johnson, who is a junior at UT Martin, transfer edge. I believe he'll have 1 season left. Let me get the stats here. He was an FC, UT Martin FCS school, first team All-American, 30 solo tackles this past year, 30 solo tackles, 53 total tackles, 20 tackles for loss, 13 F sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 10 quarterback hurries. That's insane. They also, over the weekend, got a transferred defensive lineman, Dylan Fontes, who's a junior at Maryland. I actually first reported that for Inside the Loud House, and some other people piggybacked off that, so I appreciate them giving me some love there. But I believe he'll have 1 year left, and I'm not 100% sure if he's going to play tackle on the interior, um, or if he's going to be on the edge. I think he is 6'6", 292. That to me, based on his height and length, frankly, or excuse me, his height and weight, I would feel like he'd be more doing the interior as a tackle or maybe even as a linebacker. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. But these are some nice pickups. I mean, again, we'll have to see. Yeah, he's probably going to be inside. Almost 300 pounds. He's going to be in the interior. Yeah, I don't see him. He's not going to be on the edge or a linebacker. And they've gotten some other linebacker. They got Let me see if I have this here. They got Chris Diapolina from Toledo as a linebacker. And again, I'm not going to run through every single person they've gotten. They're up to at least 14 at this point because they did get a wide receiver, Matthew Alton, out of Penn State, and that was late Monday night, and they could have gotten more even after that. But they're up to at least 14. But I again, I know when you transfer from an FCF school to a Power 4 school, and people are, is that going to work? Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. Just like sometimes, whether it's football or basketball, a guy transfers from a mid-major to a high major and excels, and then sometimes it doesn't work out, or sometimes a guy could transfer from a high major to another high major in either sport, and it either works out or doesn't. So it just depends on, I think it personally depends on fit. But I like these pickups. So speaking of that, another area where I feel like, among many, where Syracuse has got a couple good ones coming in, not necessarily just start, but as good depth pieces, is in the secondary. And I think it was on Sunday. I know I talked about basketball on Monday, but on Sunday they got a couple different guys in the secondary. Actually, no. I think, was it Sunday? Yeah. No, one. Yeah, it was Sunday. Sorry. Get my days all. One is he's a transfer cornerback, Nazir Ward. He's a redshirt sophomore at Western Kentucky, but in high school he played at Miami Northwestern, senior high school, and he had an offer from Syracuse back in the day. He's 6 foot, 185 pounds. He was one of the. I looked at all these different tweets, with all these different stats, within Conference USA. In 2025, and he's a redshirt sophomore, should have 2 years left, I believe. He was one of the highest graded, highest rated, whatever quarterbacks in various kind of metrics. So, he had 20 solo tackles, 34 total tackles, 3 tackles for loss. He had 1 pick, 6 pass breakups. He was named to the the Conference USA All Freshman team back in 2023. He took a red shirt in 2024, so he'll have 2 years left. So I like that pickup. They also got on Sunday Amari Snowden, who started at Wisconsin and was at Toledo this past year, where a couple of Syracuse assistants are now were at Toledo and are now at Syracuse, including the new defensive coordinator. Snowden didn't play last year due to injury. I believe he'll have 2 years of eligibility left, and on the bios for those other schools, he was listed as a cornerback, but he lists himself as a safety on I think it's his Instagram page. I don't know if I saw that on his Twitter page, X page, or whatever you want to call it. So look, cornerback, safety, whatever. I mean, it's secondary. They're defensive backs, and I think they're nice depth pieces. Certainly, from a safety standpoint, Devin Grant, Deuce Chestnut will be gone. A couple other guys will be coming back. From a cornerback standpoint, starters Demetrius Samuel Jr. and Chris Peel are expected back. But, between those guys, they did lose some other defensive backs to the portal. I don't know if I remember. There was Caleb Singleton. It was Jaleel Martin, a couple other guys. They lost some guys, okay? But then, in their 2026 prep class, they have Tadarius Hughes from Miami Northwestern. I believe he's a safety, or at least he played safety in high school. And then they have Chase Jeter and Ibn Muhammad as defensive backs. So look, I think these are good depth pieces. I don't know. Maybe See, Snowden, I feel like, I don't know, would he have a better chance of starting at safety? Because their corners are kind of set, but he didn't play it all last year. So we'll see how it all shakes out. I like the pickups. I like the Miami Northwestern to Syracuse pipeline. And we'll just kind of see how it goes. And we're gonna wrap up here with my last football one on Syracuse Central. It was like late last week, and um, AJ Klein 9340. I think I had talked about like what do you think projections are for next season given the schedule and Toledo not being on the schedule and all this stuff. And AJ Klein writes, as for the season, I can see 9-3 or 10-2. It all comes down to the quarterback play and defense. And yeah, certainly I would agree. Quarterback play will be a big part of it. Yeah, I think defense across the board, they were not good in tackling. They were not very good in pass coverage. You know, they would have some games where they'd have bright spots here and there, and they'd have some takeaways, but they really need to improve on the offensive and defensive lines, in my opinion, on the edge, on defense, and certainly on the offensive line. They need to be solid to keep Steve Angeli upright and to have a more effective running game, frankly. So I think they lost a bunch of wide receivers. Daryl Gill and Jonte Cook come to mind the most, but they also have Calvin Russell and Amari Guff coming in. They've got at least 3 wide receivers out of the portal. They've got Darian Williams and Darius Johnson are true freshmen with a lot of talent. They have some other 3-star wide receivers in their 2026 prep class. A couple of them from Delaware. BJ Garrett, Phoenix Henriquez, I hope I'm getting his name right, and Darnell Stokes. So I'm not too concerned about the wide receiver room, the running back room. You've got some new guys coming in that have promise, but you don't know how that's going to fare. 2 transfers along with Tyreek Hill potentially up there. So I guess the long and short of it is it's just a vastly different roster, just like a lot of other teams are dealing with. So it is hard to kind of project. I think on paper their schedule is not quite as daunting as last year because they had all those ranked teams and most of the games are on the road. So, I'm not saying Syracuse is going to go 10-2 in the regular season. It's tough to even project that. Just like it would be kind of tough to say, oh yeah, they're going to stink. They're going to go 2-10 or 3-9 again. Like, how do we know? We don't know what their complete roster will look like. We don't know what their opponents' rosters completely look like right now. We got to see how spring practices go. How is Angeli coming along? Who looks like they're going to be, on the 2-way depth chart. It's tough. Certainly, they've got a lot of talent, both in some key returnees, the prep class, Calvin Russell, among many others, 4-star guys. And then you look at the transfers. So, and then they've got, some young guys at skill position and elsewhere that are going to be thrust into bigger roles. So we'll see. But hey, listen, my man, 9-3 or 10-2. I don't want to say it's like wishful thinking because I think it's just too early, but I hope it's better than 3-9. I hope it's better than 3-9. I'll take 9-3 all day and all night. All day and all night. Steve Angeli leads the country in passing yards. Calvin Russell has over 1,000 yards receiving after he, some other wide receivers do well. They have a 2-headed monster running back. They get over 1,200, 1,300 yards combined. Win 8-9 games. Kick Notre Dame's butt. That would be nice. I'd like that. We'll see. But interesting thing to think about, and certainly, as we get in later this spring and into the summer, and we're thinking of topics to talk about. Certainly, when there's no basketball games, no football games, we're talking about recruiting or just kind of evergreen stuff. We can definitely break down the schedule and kind of our projections. And the most important thing with all of this is it's not about me rambling on because I tend to do that. It's about you all dropping comments and let's like have a dialogue back. I love when I see comments from one of you and then other people chime in. Everyone needs to be respectful, and they are. It's just fun. It's fun to see. So I appreciate you all. That's going to do it for today's edition of Syracuse Central on the Fan Arch Network. This is Neil Adler, your host, your humble host. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, friends. Please hit that subscribe button if you feel so inclined. Tell all your friends about Syracuse Central, where we cover Syracuse football, basketball, and recruiting in both sports. And as always, I love and appreciate your constructive feedback. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. I will talk to you again tomorrow on Wednesday. Take care, friends.